Joel Embiid is not tough, okay? Embiid always gets into trouble. Embiid is not tough, and he's a dirty player. Joel Embiid is the dirtiest player in the NBA except for Draymond Green. And he fails when the big games happen. That's what Joel Embiid's haters have been saying for years. Even Philadelphia's 76ers fans couldn't argue after watching the 2024 playoffs against the Knicks. People were already super mad, and now the referees too. But instead of proving the haters wrong, instead of starting the season fresh as an Olympic champion, Joel Embiid just told everyone, you know what? You're right. I am not tough. In an interview with ESPN, Embiid said, if I had a guess, I'd probably never play back-to-back games for the rest of my career. That's crazy. Imagine telling your teammates, your fans, everyone counting on you, yeah, I'm not going to play like 20% of the games this year. And you know what? I'm not going to play 20% of the games every season going forward. Here's what this means. If Embiid misses just 2 more games because he's sick, has personal stuff, or gets actually hurt, he'll immediately not be able to win any individual NBA awards like MVP or All-Star, you name it. He's basically giving up on the regular season before it even starts. But Joel Embiid's words show more than just how he thinks. It shows a much bigger problem in the NBA, the problem with load management, and the fact that it doesn't seem to be working. But the other thing is that even with load management, even with players taking games off for rest, players are still getting hurt. And now, let's go to this developing story in the NBA. Sources tell ESPN that Clippers forward Kawhi Leonard will be out for who knows how long. If you want to understand why Joel Embiid is saying this now, you first have to look at what happened to him last year. In 2023, the story around Joel Embiid was that he was one of the most dominating players in the league. A guy who could take over games whenever he wants, a player who impacts both ends of the court and destroys 3-time MVP Nikola Jokic whenever they go head dash, 2 dash, head dot. But for some reason, he can't get over the hump in the playoffs. He either fails to show up, like the fact that he's statistically worse in the playoffs than the regular season. I mean, so much so that in 21% of his playoff games, he's gone scoreless in the fourth quarter. Or the fact that I'm sure Joel would like you to focus on, he's always injured and has never been healthy. He has never played more than 68 games in a season. He missed his first 2 years because of foot injury. This guy has had foot injuries, knee injuries, Achilles injuries. He's had face injuries, for crying out loud. Just go back and watch last season's series between the Knicks and the Sixers. Joel Embiid is playing on one leg and still dropping 50 points. So coming into this season, Embiid is trying to set expectations right off the bat, basically saying, I got MVP, we've got enough talent, leave me alone. I'm just trying to coast to the playoffs and try to be as healthy as possible, and I'm only focused on one thing, on winning an NBA championship. But here's the issue. It might be too late. Max Kellerman was telling Embiid to try this 4 years ago. But you want him playing like that every night, and then what's he going to be for the playoffs? And if he does win you a championship grinding during the regular season like that, how many you think you're going to get? They need to do with Embiid what they're doing with Kawhi. You need to load manage that guy. Despite all this, fans are still calling Embiid soft, fragile, and even questioning his leadership. And I can't really disagree. It's a pretty weak mentality, if you ask me. Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant would never do this, and they got 11 championships between the two of them. I'd be curious for Joel to take the mental toughness test I created to see if he actually scored at MVP levels. You can try it at the link in the comments. Not only will you instantly see your ranking, you'll get 3 tips to unlock your peak performance. But who's really to blame? Joel or the Sixers? Is this all on Embiid, or is he just following the Sixers' plan? You know, there was a reason he signed that deal. You remember we said, like, that's weird that he signed that deal when he signed his extension? Yeah, he's a super max player, and this is probably the reason. So most likely he's never going to win another MVP scoring title, any of that, because if he's not going to play back-to-back games, I got to admit, I agree with Gilbert Arenas on this one. So this is all a part of the Sixers' strategy to keep their franchise star healthy. After all, the NBA is a business, and the Sixers are spending $400 million between Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey over the next few years. But still, the question remains, does load management even work? To find the answer to that, we have to check with the architects behind the strategy. We don't point out the instigator of all of this, the number one culprit with these players' willingness to sit out. Load management, all of this other stuff that would happen to be a man that I revere and respect profoundly. His name is Greg Popovich. And the Spurs began using load management during the later years of Tim Duncan, Manu Ginobili, and Tony Parker's career, except their approach was different to what we see today. The Spurs didn't wait for injuries to occur. Instead, they took a preventative approach. They had players wearing ankle, knee, and body braces. They limited their minutes regardless of score and even had them sit out nationally televised games. For example, back in 2012, Popovich famously rested Duncan, Parker, Ginobili, and Danny Green during a high-profile game against the Miami Heat. Coach Pop sent those 4 guys home early on a road trip, so they weren't even in the stadium. Coach Pop wanted his guys to stay fresh, and he also knew that he'd be seeing Miami Heat in the playoffs, so why give them a chance to play against his starters? Another reason he's a genius coach, it's also important to note that at the time, Tim Duncan was 36 years old, ended up playing 69 games that season, and he even won an NBA championship against the Heat. Joel Embiid, on the other hand, is 30 years old. He's never played more than 69 games in his career, and he's the only MVP to not make the conference finals. So why did it work for the Spurs then? And it's not working now. Coach Pub's method was effective because it wasn't reactive. It was implemented before the injuries became chronic issues. This is exactly the opposite of what we're seeing with players like Kawhi Leonard. Despite the Clippers' best efforts to load manage their franchise guy, to build a new team, a new stadium, and a new culture around their star player, Kawhi Leonard is always hurt. In 5 seasons with the Clippers, this man has missed 161 of 390 regular season games. That's 41% of his games missed. He's missed 35% of his playoff games. He's missed 15 of the Clippers' last 19 playoff games due to injury. It took the U.S. men's Olympic team 1 practice to look at him and be like, dude, what are you doing here? You're injured? Go home. In a few years, we might look back at Kawhi Leonard's career a little differently. Like, he might have just been tricking the wealthiest NBA owner for a decade. He's always just healthy enough right around the time he gets paid. And then the second he gets paid, he's always injured. I hate to say it. But do you think Kawhi might have been trying to trick USA Basketball? Like, he knew he was injured and he was just trying to ride the bench to get his first gold medal. I sure hope not. But if the league implemented their 65-game policy sooner, then 2 out of 3 of Kawhi's All-Star selections wouldn't have counted. And Kawhi's contracts would have looked very different just recently in 2024. The Clippers dropped a bomb and announced that Kawhi Leonard is out indefinitely to start the season. And now the only thing that ESPN heads can talk about is if Kawhi Leonard should retire from the NBA. He needs to sit down at the round table, not only with the Clippers organization, but his family as well. I really think Kawhi should consider retirement. That's a crazy take, not because Leonard is 32 years old, but because no one in there, right? Mine would turn down $150 million because their knee is sore. So is load management really the solution or just a band-aid on a bigger problem? Should teams push their athletes to play through minor injuries? Should the NBA shorten their regular season? Kawhi Leonard was supposed to be the poster child for load management's effectiveness, but instead he's become a prime example of how it can backfire. Joel, Embiid's haters have been calling him soft for years, and now he's not even fighting it. He's openly admitting that he won't be playing like 20% of the NBA regular season going forward. So the real issue, at least for me as a fan of the NBA, like you, load management isn't going anywhere. In fact, it's becoming a permanent fixture in the NBA. Players aren't expected to play all 82 games like they did in the 90s. 82 games. Man, this is what the job calls for. You're not practicing. You're not even playing a whole. You don't play in the summer. I can see if you're playing in the summer, you're on the playground, you went to the Olympics, then this training camp, y'all do 30 days of 2 days. Okay? That's when you get rest. Man, I don't want to hear this. Man, I don't want to hear none of this. And the league's new rules can only do so much. Fans like you have the right to be angry at the players, but as far as I can tell, this is the new reality. Let me know in the comments what you think about load management and players like Kawhi Leonard and Joel Embiid. Also, hit the subscribe button to catch the next upload coming soon. It's about how a short, fat